Thanks everyone. Glad to be here at CDCon, Open Source Summit. And today, as you heard, I'm going to talk to you about standardizing on CI/CD observability, and I'm going to share with you some of the work that we've been doing at the SIG, the special interest group that we've established under the OpenTelemetry project exactly for CI/CD observability. We've all been there. Your CI/CD pipeline suddenly takes ages, and you've got no clue why this happens. It happens in startups, it happens in enterprises, it even happens for us folks in the open source realm. This is actually an example I took, what you see on the screen, from the OpenTelemetry project itself, a common Slack chat amongst the folks in the SIG infra, about this time about the OTel contrib repo. And you know, this slows us down, whether open source maintainers or in your companies. And it hurts our lead time for changes. You know, the DORA metric that, especially here with the CD Foundation Forum, we all cherish, the lead time for changes, the amount of time it takes a commit to get to production. And this is actually something that I've been talking about. This is why we need observability into our release pipelines, just like we need observability into our production systems. Seems very obvious for an audience like yourselves, but you'd be surprised how many organizations this is the neglected child. And I've been talking about this, the importance of CI/CD observability for years. I was even on stage at CDCon a couple of years back in Detroit, talking about this topic and sharing how we implemented it using open source stack, Grafana, Prometheus, Jaeger, OpenSearch, and others. You have the QR code here if you want to check out on the CD Foundation's YouTube channel. But unlike monitoring production, here, unfortunately, there's no standard telemetry reported, no semantic conventions that we can rely on. Which ultimately got me to bring up the need to standardize on CI/CD observability. And where else, what's the best place to do that? As you already might have guessed, OpenTelemetry project. And yes, I'm also a CNCF ambassador. I might be biased, but OpenTelemetry is the emerging standard, if you will, and it's a CNCF project, but for telemetry emission and collection for observability. It's widely adopted for production monitoring, definitely for tracing, and it's the natural place for an initiative like that. So that led to the original OTEP, the OpenTelemetry enhancement proposal that you see here on the screen. And one thing led to the other, ending up with a proposal to form a special interest group centered on CI/CD observability that I started with my co-lead, Adriel Perkins, back in 2023. So that's how I ended up with the current initiative. Maybe it's a good time to introduce myself. So my name is Dotan Horovits, and as I mentioned, I lead the OpenTelemetry CI/CD SIG. In addition to that, I'm also an evangelist for the OpenSearch project, as my shirt might indicate. I'm a senior developer advocate at the AWS open source global team, focused on OpenSearch and on open source observability in general. So if you want to talk anything about open source observability, also happy to chat about that after the talk. Besides AWS, I'm also a CNCF ambassador, and I also run the Open Observability Talks podcast. So if you like these topics of open source observability and the likes, do check it out on your favorite podcast app. And you can find me everywhere at Horovits. My surname is my handle everywhere, so very easy to remember. If you want to reach out after the talk, happy to catch up. So Adriel and I wrote about the SIG project and the deliverables on the CNCF blog. So you have the QR code here about the standardization efforts and the journey that we've made. So this is a good place to start. But I want, in this very short talk, I want to give you the gist of what was the goal and what we've achieved so far. So the primary focus of our work is centered around semantic conventions for reporting CI/CD observability. Who knows what semantic conventions are with a show of hands? Okay, so the formal definition you see here on the slide, a common set of semantic attributes which provide meaning to data when collecting, producing, and consuming it. That's a formal definition. In plain terms, it's like the lingua franca, the common language in how you describe your telemetry, essentially. So it describes your telemetry, the names, the types, etc., as you can see here, and how the telemetry is represented in different signals across spans, which is tracing data, metrics, logs, and potentially other signals as well. And what's the relationship between the signals as well? So that's on the screen. You can see the semantic conventions for HTTP. So, if you want to look for HTTP errors across all of your microservices, you can query for the same set of fields regardless of the backend that you use. That's the essence of semantic conventions. And of course, similarly, we'd like to get tracing from GitLab, GitHub, Jenkins, and other tools and projects and their pipelines to analyze them in a similar way. So here you can see, for example, a GitHub trace describing a build and test pipeline run. This one is actually used for OpenTelemetry, again, eating our own dog food, if you will. And you can see the semantic conventions, just a few examples, capturing data around the span status, the pipeline run status, the pipeline run ID, the versioning control systems of which revision, what's the name of the repo, and so on. So things that you would like to describe as part of this, these are the intuitive things that you will get out of the box. So remember the case that I showed you at the beginning before with the infra SIG team struggling with long runners on the OTel contrib repo. That's how it carried on, as you can see. That's how we used our CI/CD observability to quickly figure out the root cause. So you really see that nicely. Adriel, in this case, really showed them, even pasted the graph there. Normally to answer questions that they had, they didn't really need to go through various different repositories of the projects and look at the various pipeline runs. It would have taken quite a bit of time because you have quite a few repos there involved in this. But because we were observing them, we could very quickly validate, in this case, that we're indeed more than usual delays on the PR jobs. You can see very clearly here on the screen the spike in duration on the P50. And in this case, this is a screenshot that Adriel pasted there for them. He uses signals to create for this dashboard. But the beauty is that because it's a standard telemetry, it's very easy to analyze it with any backend of your choice, any at least OTel supporting backend. Like I gave another example from Honeycomb dashboard. And that's the beauty of standards and specifications, right? So that's in a nutshell. So that's the mission statement, and now let's see where we're at with the project and with the semantic conventions around the project, what we've been working on. So today, already within the OTel SemConv release, for those who use OTel, you already have on the SemConv and the collector, you already find the things that I'm showing you. First, there are the CI/CD pipelines that you can see here. This is what we were just talking about, what attributes denote essentially a CI/CD pipeline. There are also deployment attributes, which is the way to express deployments consistently. Super helpful set of attributes for the DORA metrics, the 4 DORA metrics that most organizations use. Essentially you attach the attributes to your telemetry and derive the metrics. Also VCS attributes on the versioning control systems and test attributes. These are quite a few of those, from expressing things such as the repository to expressing things such as the actions within the repository, like changes. So want to root cause certain misbehavior, I don't know, spike in duration back to the change that someone committed, push to the repo. Very easy, again, when you have these attributes in place. And when you have tests going on, how you express them uniquely within the CI/CD pipeline runs, these are the sorts of things. Also artifact attributes that very closely align with the SALSA ones, so supply chain levels for software artifacts. So if you use those, you'll find it very, very convenient. And again, you attach the attributes. You see some examples here for metrics that are used here to attach the attributes to your telemetry and then derive the metrics, traces, or other signals on your pipelines. So that was about semantic conventions. Another area that we've worked on at the SIG was specifications for context and baggage propagation over environment variables. So passing context between microservices over the network, this is something a very well described, very solved, very standardized problem. You do that whether over HTTP, over gRPC. Usually do that with headers that are very well-known specs for those. But how do we do that when there are processes that don't communicate over the network? Like things that you find in CI/CD pipelines when a process spawns a sub-process, a child process, or things like that, and you don't have these means. These are very common problems, of course, in these sorts of tools, and something that we've encountered. So we wanted to standardize on that. The first issue and ask from the community was opened already 5 years ago or so back in 2020, I think. And after a couple of attempts of writing an OTEP, an OpenTelemetry enhancement proposal for this, we got it approved late last year. So really exciting, OTEP 258 for those who want to see. And really the first iteration of the specification is already out. So really exciting recent milestone for the SIG. And it's good for CI/CD pipelines and tools that run them, like also Terraform, OpenTofu on the infrastructure automation side of the house. You can see here an example with OpenTofu on the screen, but it does work in the SIG also to create this support for OpenTofu, by the way. And there's a lot more that is going on in this SIG. This is the board. Everything is open, of course, around different signals, metrics, traces, and events, essentially logs, signals, work around the receivers, prototypes, and reference implementations for GitHub, GitLab, Argo CD workflows, Jenkins, TeamCity, OpenTofu that I mentioned, and lots of others. Really exciting to see that work, and work on semantic conventions for other domains, for more domains such as software outage incidents and so on, and also more types of instrumentation. So there are already SDK reference implementations for environment propagation specs, but a lot of work that has been done now that the spec is there to create these implementations, including like decorators and all these things, and also very importantly getting long-term observability of the OpenTelemetry project itself across the rest of the repository. So what you've seen, this is the first steps that we've integrated, but we're looking to integrate it deeply. As I mentioned, eating our own dog food, so observing OpenTelemetry with OpenTelemetry. And also, we would like to see that as a reference implementation for other open source projects. We want other projects, and I know that many of you are involved in maintaining projects, to actually use that, or at least consider that yourselves, to monitor your own pipelines, the release of your own projects. So hopefully this will serve as a reference for other projects as well. And all these things really are foundational for enabling observability across the entire software development life cycle. So we've seen that, but we want to expand it. If we look at the roadmap and vision beyond the current steps, is really to look at the full SDLC, the full software development life cycle, and seeing how we provide this observability across the board. This is where we want to hear from you. because you're the experts definitely on the continuous delivery side. So there is the blog post that I mentioned before on the CNCF blog that has a lot of information about what I talked about. There's also a Slack channel on the CNCF Slack, OTel CI/CD. There are SIG calls weekly on Thursdays that you're more than welcome to join. Some of the folks from the CDF already joined us and engaged in discussion. And of course, the GitHub where you can find the entire board with all the initiatives that are there. You have the links there. So check it out. And I'm really excited to hear from you and see how we can collaborate with other open source projects, getting your ideas, how to, what other semantic conventions are needed, what other capabilities are lacking, and maybe other integrations that we can do with other tooling to take it forward. I'm Dotan Horovits, and thank you very much for listening.
All right, thank you very much, Dotan.
Yeah.
Okay, so any questions? We have about, we have time for one question here, maybe two, if it depends on.
Hi, thank you for the talk. Maybe a naive question, but what is the relationship between these, semantic conventions and events and the CD events project? Because some of the things seem like eerily similar.
So we've had quite a few discussions with the CD events folks, and we've found, I would say, the short answer. Do you have someone from the CD events, by the way, here on the? No, it's a shame. But anyway, after discussing, and this is something that came out also, Eiffel project and others in this area, that this is, I would say, more complementary than competing after, again, ironing and crunching it with the CD events team. However, we do, one of the things that we're exploring is the synergy between the projects. So, as I mentioned, folks from the CD events, I was hoping that there will be some here that can comment on their side of the discussion, but we definitely are exploring the way for the synergy between the projects.
All right, make a quick one, yeah.
Hi, I'm Naveen from CDF.
Oh, very good.
What are some of the major challenges you are seeing when we are implementing OpenTelemetry in CI/CD for enterprises? When implementing CI/CD OpenTelemetry for enterprises, what are some of the most important do's and don'ts you want to recommend?
So it's a great question, but I think we're early on in this phase. As I mentioned, we're currently only creating the specification, the semantic conventions. We don't have a lot of users that already deployed it in production, in enterprises, in large scale. So I think we're early on. We're experimenting ourselves as OpenTelemetry as consumers of the CI/CD. So I can talk a lot about, actually, as a project, what we've experienced in implementing that. But it's interesting, actually, to get feedback from folks that start doing it in their own systems. We get different feedbacks, mostly around missing semantic conventions, different tooling or different tooling semantics. Another point that maybe I should mention in that regard is that the implementations that I already mentioned for, let's say, GitHub and GitLab are essentially today implemented as receivers within OpenTelemetry collector. So OpenTelemetry has a collector component. You take the native emission from, let's say, GitLab, and then you transition it. The ideal for us, once this becomes the de facto standard, is this will be a first-level citizen within the tools themselves. So the tools themselves to emit it natively, of course, with the vendors or project's own understanding of the state of the pipeline. We're now only relying on this ETL, if you will, to convert it. So we're in discussions with some of these to get it as a first-level citizen. That, I think, will be a great enabler also for enterprises, because many of them I know use not the open source stack, but rather the GitLabs and the GitHubs and these sorts of tooling.
Okay, great. So I think the takeaway from that is definitely if you're starting to use OpenTelemetry, definitely take a lot of your learnings and contribute back into the project and what they're doing, as they can build out a lot of the things that are needed. So thank you again very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
All right, we have now hit,